We'll be having more on the impact and the tariffs are set to have on businesses. And for that, I'm joined by Ang Yuit, President of the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. Mr. Ang, welcome. You must have been fielding many calls today. So what sectors will be the most affected in at least the short term and medium term?
I think in the short term, primarily you are looking at companies that have a direct relationship with US. That will be maybe in the manufacturing sector or trading sector, where you may have outlets or you have subsidiaries in all these affected countries and you are doing trade in both directions. And these are the companies that are mainly the most concerned.
Okay, the most exposed right now. How do you think that these SMEs and others, in fact, will be responding to Trump's tariffs?
I think that there are two broad range, and you can see it as maybe a sliding scale, where some SMEs are noticing and realizing that, hey, a lot of things are still at play, are still at flux, and countries are still looking at negotiations. So a lot of this is not landed yet, right? So they are waiting for dust to settle. But at the same time, I think they are also planning Plan B and Plan C, right? I think that some of the others where, I've spoken to some where you are based in China, for example. And so far, if you look at the response from China, it seems to be a little more hardline. So that is a cause for more worry. And in those cases, some of them are working a little hard for their Plan B and C.
Okay. Hang tight, we have more questions for you, but before we get to that, tell you about local and small, medium manufacturing firms. Well, they're bracing themselves for the higher costs, especially for those in the automobile and semiconductor supply chain. Still, here's what the Singapore Manufacturing Federation has to say.
We have other economies that's being hit even harder. So to some extent, potentially, it can create opportunity for us or some of our members and our manufacturers to look at potential of Singapore being a supplying location with the lower of all in terms of import tax tariff that is being imposed.
All right, so you heard that the Singapore Manufacturing Federation saying that there are still opportunities to be had. Expand on what they just said. What are the companies that might actually benefit from this?
Well, what Dennis from SMF was saying is that in the case, relatively, Singapore is still the strongest in terms of the least number of tariffs, right? And as such, then you may see more FDI coming to Singapore, and that's a great chance for us to strengthen our manufacturing industry. And on top of that, I think I wanted to add a bit is that in all turbulence, there's always going to be opportunities and challenges, right? The broad worry that we are seeing from businesses when they're looking at this is that it may, firstly, being US such a strong economy or big purchaser, that may tip US into a recession or close to that. And that may then generate a global slowdown, right? So overall, that may not be a good thing for all of us. And at the same time, because of these trade actions, you're going to see reconfiguration of flows. And the last time we had a major thing was COVID, right? And when you saw the major reconfiguration of trade flows, that results broadly in higher costs. And that will then drive costs up. And overall, it will not be good for most companies.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing, flows, supply chains also. We saw that headache during COVID as well. So firms may be choosing to diversify their supply chains to reduce their reliance on these high tariff markets. Is this something that's feasible?
Yes, I think that firms will then readjust and review once that settles and see how that would play out and vis-a-vis different cost structure in different countries. So there'll be a bit of reshuffling of cards, and we've got to see how that pans out.
Well, while we're waiting to see the dust settle, you talked about preparing. So what support do you think might be needed to make these shifts that you say are required to happen?
Yeah, I think that the businesses right now, there are two broad challenges, right, when we talk about SMEs. The first is that the local consumption market is a bit slow, right? So the market is slow. We are trying to look at how we can grow, we can go abroad. And I think with these trade tariffs and the uncertainties, we may need more support in that and grounding, and maybe coming together and banding together even more strongly to look at other markets. Secondly is that if you look at this situation, right, I think we should continue to innovate and see how we can be even more competitive. And in this particular instance, I think support for businesses to strengthen our efficiency, at the same time internationalization will be quite welcome.
Okay, we leave it there for now. I do want to thank you for your input, Mr. Ang Yuit there, President of the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises, on what could be ahead for SMEs.